Welcome to Lucent Talks. Today we're hosting an ESL teacher.
My name is Aaron Rotsinger. I'm an EAP teacher, which means English for Academic Purposes. I am currently the pre-sessional director at the University of St Andrews in St Andrews, Scotland. I've been here for about a year, but I've actually been teaching for about 20 years. I taught for 2 years. I taught literature and writing in the United States. And then I spent 6 years in Istanbul, Turkey, teaching lots of different places, but 3 different universities: Bilgi University, Işık University, and Özyeğin University. After that, I moved to China, where I was at Xi'an Liverpool University for 6 years. That's a kind of project that a Chinese university and Liverpool University in the UK collaborated on. And I was there where I was the year 2 manager and for a time the deputy director of the language school there. It's one of the largest language schools in the world, actually. It was a really good experience. But then after 6 years, I decided to keep traveling around a little bit. So I went to Vietnam, where I worked for RMIT, which is the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. It's an Australian university. I worked there for a short time, and then I moved to Kazakhstan. I was there for about a year, where I worked at the, it's called Nazarbayev University. It was founded by the old president of Kazakhstan, and it was also a wonderful school. But then this opportunity came up, so about a year ago, I moved here to Scotland.
Why do some ESL students learn much more quickly than others?
There are so many different reasons for that, but I can name a few of them. I think one of the biggest ones is motivation. People who really want to learn will always learn faster and better. And there's 2 types of motivation. There's intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation means you want to learn because you want to learn. Maybe it's because you want to study something. Maybe it's because you want to move to a different country. Maybe you just naturally love languages. So you'll put the work in for yourself. And then there's extrinsic motivation, which is because you want to pass an exam, because you want to make your parents proud, something that doesn't have anything to do with you, really. And that also works, but it's not as good of a reason, I think. A couple other things are, for example, shyness. If you are a shy person, you probably won't do as well with speaking, because like everything else, learning a language requires lots of practice. And if you don't feel comfortable practicing it, you won't probably become as good as fast as other people might. Having said that, though, English isn't just one thing, it's several different skills. So somebody who really is good at speaking might not be very good at writing, and they require totally different abilities and motivations and things like that. So there's also, I think the third major one is opportunity. Some people just don't have the same opportunities as others. If you live in a place where lots of people around you are speaking English, or if you live in a country where it's easy to get access to English language television, music, things like that, then of course it's much easier for you to learn the language quickly. But some people don't really have the opportunity to be exposed to the language, and of course that's going to be more difficult.
What's the best way to learn a second language?
The best way is to be surrounded by it. Of course, that's why people travel across the world and study in foreign countries, immersion programs. I mean, the best way is to have that language all around you. That's not always possible, though. So if you're in a situation where you aren't surrounded by people speaking English or whatever language you're trying to learn, I have found personally that the people who have the best English tend to be the people who play a lot of games. I think that gamification is a really important thing when learning a language. For some people, maybe not for everybody, but because it creates an artificial need. If you really want to play this computer game or this board game or something like that, if you really want to play the game, then your motivation is to play the game, not to learn the language. So you have to force yourself to learn the language just as a tool to succeed in the game. So I really think that's that's a good way to learn a language.
What are the factors that influence the acquisition of a second language?
Well, in addition to the things that we've already talked about, I think there are a few other ones. One is age, of course. If you start learning a language at a young age, it's much easier to make it stick. Um, if you learn a language at an older age, it's also okay, but there's more in your head, I think, getting in the way and distracting you. So it takes a bit longer for most people. Another one is culture. People in certain parts of the world are encouraged to speak more, to be friendlier, to be outgoing. And I think this really helps when you're trying to, talk to people, to learn a language, to ask questions. Whereas people in other cultures are taught to kind of remain quiet and don't talk so much in groups, don't talk to strangers so much. And it's going to be more difficult for them for different skills, of course. So that does get in the way sometimes. And I think a third important one is your first language. I mean, if you're a native speaker of French, you're going to learn Italian very, very easily. But if you're a native speaker of Chinese, it's going to be really difficult to learn a lot of European languages because they're so very different. The grammar works differently. The letters are different. Chinese doesn't even have letters. So I think that can either help or really stand in the way.